Today we're going to do a book report. This will be the first book report, but it's not going to be the last book report. I recently finished reading You Deserve a Tech Union by Ethan Marcotte, and boy, y'all ready for this? I hope you're ready for this because I'm ready for this. I'm going to start by telling you my original thought when I saw the title of You Deserve a Tech Union. My thought was something along the lines of, why do I deserve a tech union? Those are for blue-collar workers, and I'm a knowledge worker. I'm a technology worker. Yeah. So the bad news about this book is that it is not a step-by-step handbook checklist for you to start to finish, plan and execute and build and form a union. The good news, however, is that Ethan spent 1.5 years talking to the people who have done so, and he's distilled this information down into a very handy and, let's be frank, easy to read book. Why do I think you're going to like this book? Well, first, it's because the book is really easy to read. And I'm not saying it's dumbed down. It is definitely following plain language principles. It is, not only is the content not terribly complex, Ethan has a way of writing that brings you in. He's not talking down to you. He's not using words that are over your head. And if he does, he really clearly defines them. My favorite part about reading a book, it's a tech union. It's a book about unionizing. And why did I feel like I could just tuck my feet up underneath me, cuddle into the couch, and just be like, Ethan, tell me all of the things that you know. That's what it feels like to read this book. He doesn't talk down to you. It is earnest and honest and very genuine. It's also a very thoughtful look at who builds power and wealth in our country and the impact that it has on us and the world around us. Who is Ethan Marcotte? Well, I'm going to put some links below so that you can read more, but even if you haven't heard Ethan's name, you know Ethan Marcotte. Have you heard of responsive web design? He kind of maybe invented that whole thing, just a little bit. You may have occasionally crossed paths with it. Let's be real. You know responsive web design. Most importantly, he's not just a code monkey, a front-end developer that can also design. He's an intentional and thoughtful person. And I think he moves through the world in a way that is meaningful. And I really respect that. One of my first exposures was, of course, learning about responsive web design. But I also, just a few years ago, I read his talk. Now that sounds silly. It's a very long format article that will really captivate you. And it's his entire talk that he presented at New Adventures in 2019. And it's called Worldwide Work. I'm going to link that below. But trust me when I say you should read this. It starts talking about starlings. I think we get into some drop caps. We get into equitable pay and what tech jobs are qualified as technical jobs versus non-technical tech jobs, and the distinction between how we treat those people. So chapter 1 is called Just Work, which is really interesting. It's just work, but it's just, as in justice and equitable. Ethan asks 2 questions at the beginning of the book that I think are very interesting, or at the beginning of the chapter that I think are very interesting. One is, what do you like about your job? And the other is, what would you change about your job if you could? He also goes into the power in tech is unbalanced. We are salaried workers. We're knowledge workers. We're white collar workers. And yet right now, we still fear being laid off. The benefits we enjoy, as amazing as they are only granted to us because of the beneficence of our employer. They are offered at the discretion of our employer. And now remember, many states that we're working in are at-will employment, which means you can be let go for any reason at any time. Think back over the last year. I'm recording this on Thursday, September 28th. Think back over the last year and 9 months. How many people in your network have been laid off, have struggled to find work, have been passed over for promotions, or just haven't gotten calls back? And now consider that the layoffs that have taken place in the tech industry have not impacted all workers equally. 45% of the people impacted by the latest round of layoffs, well, I'm going to say this, late 2022, early 2023, the people that were most impacted by this, 45% of them were women. Only 1/3 of all tech roles are filled by women, and only 1/4 of all tech leadership roles are filled by women. That's a way bigger and very disproportionate amount of women being laid off. Other underrepresented groups, such as Black tech workers, are also being impacted at outsized rates. Chapter 2 starts with a quote, and I remember the author's first name is David, and I don't remember the rest, but the book is called What We Build with Power. The quote is, "Economic injustice doesn't happen by accident. Technology was supposed to make our lives easier and better, but more and more often, technologies are being used as tools of hate and oppression." Do you feel like you have a say in the safe and ethical use of the products that you build? Most of us don't. In 2017, 50 tech workers collaboratively wrote and signed the Never Again Pledge, which was refusing to build technology and collect data that would be used to further marginalize underrepresented groups. We, the workers, have not historically been granted a say or any control in how the products that we build impact people in our communities. Since then, many more tech workers have mobilized to enact change in their workplace. Two really notable things: Kickstarter unionized, as did ActBlue. The statements that these tech workers have made in their goal to form a union echo sentiments that I have heard from many people. We want a safer and more equitable workplace. We seek ethical standards in our products that preserve trust and protect the vulnerable. In Chapter 3, we start getting into the details of what a tech union is. This is where Ethan really shines, in both storytelling and in simple communication. I started to feel overwhelmed by the amount of information that I was receiving. Ethan was really clear about defining new words and phrases and connecting the dots between concepts I already understood, mental models that I already have, and the new information he was sharing. To be super clear, a union is a group of workers who, through organization and collective action, fight for a better life. A quote that I really liked was, "We recognize the superiority of democracy in every part of life except at work." And it's interesting how poorly this is appreciated, that organizations make better decisions when more people make decisions, not when fewer people make decisions. This chapter also talks about what a union can even bargain for. Kickstarter achieved guaranteed minimum cost of living increases, annual pay equity review to make sure that discriminatory pay practices aren't being enacted, and guaranteed development frameworks for every role so that everyone knows how to succeed and how to achieve the next level in their career. They also identified some things that they later wondered if they could have included, and I thought this was really interesting, like an extended parental leave policy. Could that parental leave extend for up to 5 years? Who knows? Also, could they have contractually mandated that 20% of each sprint is spent solving or reducing technical debt? That's a pretty cool idea. Chapter 4 gets into the real meat and potatoes of how to actually take the steps to start organizing a union. Literally, this is where the juicy goodness of talking to so many people over the last year and a half comes to play. He talked to people who successfully and people who did not successfully organize a union. You could tear these pages out and use them as a high-level guide for how to organize at your company. Biggest takeaway that you probably are wondering, but I don't know what to do. Nobody knows what to do. Most people have never done this, and most people never will. No one comes to work one day fully organized and prepared. Just like becoming a designer or a developer or a QA person, you have to train to learn how to do this. You're going to learn while you do this. Forming a union is like that. It's learnable. And here's the thing, you're never alone. Chapter 5 is an interesting wrap-up and also ties in really closely to the Worldwide Work article. The thing I've noticed about being a tech worker is that lots of us have really nice salaries. We've got great benefits. I'm recording this on a day where my company offers paid mental health days. We can take a day off every month and do whatever we want. I'm choosing to spend it here with you, recording a book report. I also work remotely. You might be, about like I was around this time in the book, thinking, why on earth would I throw that away to help form a union at my company? We believe, I'm probably speaking for you, putting words in your mouth, but we believe that we live in a meritocracy, that we have what we have because we deserve it, that we have achieved these things due to our amazing skills and technical knowledge. We've bought into the American individualist ideal by thinking, I did this by myself. I alone am special and deserving. But I can't do what I do without the developers, without the product managers, without our customer service team, without our implementation team. We can't do it without the sales team. If some of these people are being harmed by a system that benefits me, how could I not be impacted by that harm? Even if you're a crusty old Scrooge McDuck, this still impacts you. Here's a quote. Not 5 days after laying off 10,000 workers, Microsoft invested $10 billion with OpenAI. They want to build technology that replaces us. Many other investors, tech CEOs, and billionaires have made it clear that they believe that tech workers are overpaid and overvalued. They believe that companies are overstaffed by a factor of 2x to 10x. That means they think that a company can deal with 10% of their current workforce and still deliver the same results and make even more profit. It's not hard to find direct quotes with people's names and faces from a group of people that is almost entirely male and almost entirely white and almost entirely extremely wealthy. They believe that the tech industry is overstaffed and overpaid. They think companies need to fire between 50 and 75% of their workforce in order to reduce costs. The work you do and the work of your coworkers is disposable. It's a rounding error. Sweeping layoffs are needed to balance the books. We are being told that we are overpaid, overvalued, and we're being laid off in the hundreds of thousands. Now, do you feel like a union is only for blue-collar workers? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. I think it's going to be an interesting few years. Thanks for joining me for my first ever book report. I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. I'd like to reach as many early career designers as possible for mentorship and motivation to know that they belong and that they can, in fact, find success. Thanks for joining me. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.